Now, the Prince of Wales says he regrets being deceived by a bishop who was convicted of sexually abusing young men and teenagers. In a letter to the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, the Prince wrote that he'd been friends with Peter Ball, the former Bishop of Gloucester, for several decades between the 1970s and 1980s. But he said he was unaware of his crimes and felt deep personal regret at being misled. Here's Sophie Long.
A senior and powerful figure in the Church of England for decades, Peter Ball had friends in high places. But in 2015, the former Bishop of Lewes and Gloucester, seen here on the left, was convicted of abusing teenagers and young men and jailed for 32 months. He received a caution for gross indecency in 1993. Today, in a letter read to the inquiry by its senior counsel, the Prince of Wales tried to distance himself from the man he once described as a loyal friend, saying he had taken him on what he believed to be his good word.
Events later demonstrated beyond any doubt, to my deep regret, that I, along with many others, had been misled, and the reverse was true.
The Prince said he wasn't aware until recently that a caution carried an acceptance of guilt.
I have to say that victims find that excuse, as it were, rather unconvincing. Prince Charles is somebody who had access to the best legal advice that money can buy. He had the opportunity to clarify the legal position. He should have taken that opportunity and should have avoided a relationship with this man.
In 1997, Peter Ball and his brother were found this house in rural Somerset, then owned by the Duchy of Cornwall. Prince Charles wrote to him saying he longed to see him settled somewhere that gave him peace and tranquility. The two men exchanged letters over 2 decades. In 1993, Peter Ball wrote, "Life continues to be pretty nasty for me. It seems that my accusers still want to continue their malicious campaign. Luckily, they are beginning to show some of their fraudulent plans." In 1995, Prince Charles wrote to Peter Ball saying, "I wish I could do more. I feel so desperately strongly about the monstrous wrongs that have been done to you and the way you have been treated. It's appalling that the Archbishop has gone back on what he told me before Christmas, that he was hoping to restore you to some form of ministry in the church. I suspect you are absolutely right. It is due to fear of the media." Prince Charles said he hadn't been aware of the true context and details of the complaints against Peter Ball until his trial in 2015. He said that during the 1980s and 90s, there was a presumption that you could take people such as bishops at their word. But he was clear that he never sought to influence the outcome of a police investigation into Peter Ball, nor did he instruct any of his staff to do so. Sophie Long, BBC News, South London.
Well, our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell is here. Nick, just how embarrassing is all this for the Prince?
Clive, from the perspective of 2018, knowing what we know now, to read that in 1995 the Prince of Wales expressed sympathy for, quotes, the monstrous wrong supposedly done to Bishop Ball is unquestionably embarrassing for him. It suggests, I think, a degree of naivety, a disinclination to ask reasonable questions about the indiscretion that had caused the bishop to resign as Bishop of Gloucester. But we must remember that Prince Charles was not alone back in the 1990s in being naive and a disinclination to ask questions about this sort of thing. The wider church, the NHS, the BBC, in the case of Savile, were equally at fault in that respect. There are two things in particular I think we have to remember in the case of Prince Charles. He is, we know, interested in faith. He is attracted to charismatic people of faith who make faith more accessible. Bishop Ball, by all accounts, was one such person. Charles said he found him interesting and engaging. The other thing to bear in mind is that in the 1990s, Charles himself felt that he was the victim of unfair treatment, not persecution, but unfair treatment by the media. I think that will have made him unduly sympathetic to this charismatic person who said that I too am being, as it were, victimised by the media. But there is no question that at the moment Clarence House feels frustration and anger that that presumption of good faith which Charles placed in this man was so grievously betrayed.